folks, Rob Davenport here from jungleapocalypse.com, back for episode 101. And joining me, as always, is our awesome co-host, Mike Sherwin.
Hello, everyone.
And this week we got another 10 stories all lined up for you. So let's just jump right in and start talking about story number 10.
Hey, going on with last week's opening news story, the Nickelback for Nickelsack. A man spends 8 days in jail for posting metal lyrics on Facebook. James Evans, a 31-year-old man from Kentucky, was arrested for posting lyrics from the song Class Dismissed, a hate primer by the metal band Exodus. The quote chosen by Mr. Evans was, "Student bodies lying dead in the halls, a blood-splattered treatise of hate. Class dismissed is my hypothesis. Gunfire ends in debate." The warrant, when issued for Mr. Evans' arrest, suggested he threatened to kill students and or staff at the school. In response to this, Exodus guitarist Gary Holt came out and said, "James Evans was simply posting lyrics to a band he likes on Facebook and was locked up for it. The song Class Dismissed, a hate primer, was written as a view through the eyes of a madman and in no way endorses that kind of effed up behavior. It was the Virginia Tech massacre perpetuated by Seung Hui Cho that was the subject and inspiration to write the song, one in which we put the brakes on playing live after the Sandy Hook shooting, as we did not want to seem insensitive. When we start to overreact to things like lyrics by any band, including Exodus, and start arresting people, we are caving into paranoia and are well on our way to becoming an Orwellian society."
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt at all there. I think when you start having people get arrested for posting lyrics to a song on Facebook and actually thrown in jail, not just having the cops come and show up and talk to them, but actually getting thrown in jail for it, I think we got to really start asking ourselves, like, what the fuck is going on in the USA? Because I could see the RCMP up here in Canada coming and talking to you if you posted those lyrics on Facebook, especially if somebody reported you that didn't realize that just happens to be a band you like.
Yeah, exactly, like the style of music you listen to or whatever. And
it could be something, like there's somebody that has a vendetta against you or whatever that called it in. And even then, I still think they would come and they would talk to you and maybe ask you a few questions about things and then keep an eye on you if you continue to show aggressive behavior or something. But actually picking somebody up and throwing them in jail. But then again, Mike, where do we draw that line?
Well, exactly. Like, it's hard to say what the person's intentions truly are when they post something like that on their social media. He could have been posting something that was pertaining to, like, say, another school shooting or something that he was maybe thinking of participating in. But I don't know. That doesn't seem like the kind of thing that the guy was doing. I guess too here, Mr. Evans' case will be deferred for another 6 months. And he'll have to undergo mental evaluation before they actually go through and really give him his charges, because he spent the 8 days in jail before he was found guilty of any crime.
8 days in jail?
Yeah, for a crime that he wasn't even found guilty for yet.
That's crazy. 8 days in jail for posting some lyrics on Facebook. And I mean, this is Kentucky, so
yeah.
I guess maybe they're just bored. I don't know, man. The jail was empty. They needed somebody to put in it. I don't get it.
Yeah, me neither. I think Kentucky is another state that has a lot of privatized prisons too. So that could be.
Yeah, that could. Now that the drug war is starting to wear off. Yeah. Now it'll be
that's a whole other story.
Now it would be the copyright law or something that'll start throwing us in jail for hand over fist. Anyway, let's get on to the next story. E-cigarette criticisms alarmists, say researchers. And for every million smokers who switch to e-cigarettes, more than 6,000 lives a year could be saved, according to the University College London team. Meanwhile, another group of London-based experts has attacked criticisms of e-cigarettes as misleading. And throughout this article, they just basically go and show how a lot of researchers are coming out and speaking out on the benefits of people switching to e-cigarettes over regular cigarettes. And now the last week, the WHO had come out and said, that they should be limited and more research should be done, which I guess I agree with the more research, but they're talking about like I'm banning them everywhere in public and there's no real research for it. So what do you think, Mike?
Well, myself, I use the e-cigarette. I started using it in about May. In the short time I have been using them, I've noticed that when I wake up in the morning, I don't cough as bad. They do have some health benefits, I think. Whether they're completely 100% healthy for you or not, I'm not too sure on. And I do agree that there should be some regulation to them, such as legal smoking age should be enforced for them. They should.
Okay, so we had a little bit of a drop out there, but don't worry. We're just going to get on to the next story.
BP's been found grossly negligent for the Deepwater Horizon drilling rig explosion and oil leak in the Gulf of Mexico in April 2012. They've been held responsible for killing 11 men and spewing millions of barrels of oil into the ocean. The ruling U.S. District Judge Carl Barbier said they could lead to nearly $18 billion in civil penalties for polluting the Gulf. BP's planning on appealing this decision because they've already paid $4 billion and they figure that's enough for ruining, a natural habitat and water and livelihoods of millions of people, poisoning the places for growing food, you name it. What all that's happened in the BP oil spill there. There's like lots of bad that's still going on, and they're still not sure what the true effects are going to be on that one.
I'm still amazed that they've gotten away with like paying as little as they have. Like, I mean, you pull how many hundreds of billions of dollars out of those areas every year, and you put back $4 billion, and you're like, oh, we're sorry, we didn't mean to screw the entire ecosystem, but here's $4 billion, and we'll just continue to drill.
Yeah. Oh, on you little shrimp captains and stuff, your little shrimping boats. Here, we'll cover the cost of a new boat for you, but we're sorry, there's nothing we can do to get the shrimp back.
Well, no, there's nothing wrong with the shrimp that are there. Just because they're white and they don't taste quite right, and people that are eating them are getting sick. I mean, that's natural. That has nothing to do with what we did.
Yeah, and I don't even know what the worst part of the whole disaster is, the oil being spilt into the Gulf or the Corexit that they used to fix it.
I almost think the Corexit was worse than the actual
spill.
Yeah, because I mean, come on, like what is in that stuff, and you're just pouring it all over the place, and now we've got, the Gulf or the North American Gulf Stream stopped working just after that. So you got to wonder how much the Corexit and the oil played into that, because the Gulf of Mexico is the driver. It's the motor that connects the belt of the North Atlantic current. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like one of the major important water circulation systems on our planet too. It helps regulate our temperature and like everything. Like we barely have an understanding of how our world works. Like we're just starting to learn things, and we're continuing to learn things, yet we still like to play around with things like offshore oil drilling, even though we know that doing so could possibly lead to huge disasters like the Gulf.
Well, look at what they're doing in the Arctic right now. They're doing massive exploration for drilling up here, and that scares the shit out of me. And then fracking, Nova Scotia just put a ban on fracking. I guess they're going to do some research or whatever before they allow it. And the premier of the Northwest Territories came out and was kind of like, well, we're just going to keep going ahead with ours.
Yeah, they can just keep passing the buck on to whoever they want and get away with it. It's sad. So sad.
Well, I guess it's life. But let's get on to the next story. Brain-to-brain verbal communication in humans achieved for the first time. A team of researchers has successfully achieved brain-to-brain human communication using non-invasive technologies across the distance of 5,000 miles. Now, you picked out this story, Mike, and it's a really interesting one, but why don't you break it down for us? Like, how does this work?
Well, basically, from what I read in the article here, they had a group of 4 people, ages 28 to 50. One guy was assigned to be the transmitter. Basically, he had to transmit it. They basically broke it down into binary code, the word. And to get the binary code, it was the guy raised his hands for 1 or raised his feet for 0. And by doing that, he created the binary code. And then they transmitted that binary code via the internet to a computer that had one of the 3 receivers connected to it. And the receivers were able to pick up the binary code by flashes in their peripheral vision. And depending on what the flashes, what side of their peripheral vision the flashes were on, was a 1 or a 0. I believe it was left for 1 and right for 0. And being connected to their electroencephalogram and a magnet, magnetized and electroencephalogram was connected to each person's head, and that was basically how they were able to transmit the binary code to the person's brain. And not sure, they didn't really say too much as to how the brain got the code itself, but they were able to like see the word or whatever it was that the person was transmitting.
That's getting to be some real Minority Report shit there. Yeah. That
to me screams transhumanism at the highest level that we've seen so far yet.
Yeah, and at this rate, I think it's bound to happen. I mean, look at Apple's launch event next week. They're supposed to bring out the iWatch, so here comes the revolution of the wearables. This is something
indoctrinating us.
Yeah, well, and they've been talking about it since Google Glass have come out, that they were going to do this, that they were going to indoctrinate us all into wearing these computerized wearables. And, now instead of just being able to take the battery out of your cell phone, you're going to have to take it out of your cell phone, your watch, your pants, your belt, your socks, your, underwear, whatever.
Everything.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have to walk around in a Faraday cage just so you don't get, picked up on radar. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about these technologies, but I feel that in some respects, I think it's almost probably going to happen at some point that we're going to have to start wearing that kind of thing. And it's going to be basically forced upon everybody. Like, it would be hard for you to go out and buy a pair of jeans without a micro transmitter of some sort into it.
Yeah. So that you can flash your latest status update or whatever from Facebook on your pants as you're walking down the street.
Yeah. Hey, my running shoes just tweeted.
Yeah.
I have stepped in shit.
Well, something like that might be handy.
Well, yeah, maybe. But then it sends it to Instagram and Facebook and Twitter for you, and you have a little video of you stepping in shit. Anyway, let's get on to the next story.
Oh yeah, this one was one that really, really made me kind of laugh and also shook my head at the same time. Scotland's space whiskey will return to Earth next month. Basically, some scientists who are studying the change in flavors when things go into space decided to launch some whiskey in some glass vials, along with a little bit of charred oak barrel, up to the International Space Station to see how zero-G affects taste. I'm sure there's probably better things that we could be spending our money on.
You think?
Will lose its flavor or get a better flavor while in space.
Yeah, being one that doesn't like to drink, I don't understand why you would waste your money. But I guess in a way, it's kind of. I watched on Netflix the other night the new space race. which was all about Elon Musk and SpaceX versus Boeing and one other company. And it was interesting to see how they were using commerce as the next method of expanding the space front. And I guess in a way I kind of understand this, in that if you could figure out a way to launch 100 barrels of whiskey into space and it tastes really good, and then you bring it back and you sell it for $5,000 a bottle of space whiskey, you might make some really good money off of that. But this really a necessary experiment. I think there's better things we could be wasting our time on.
Oh yeah, like the effects of surgeries and such in space. How would that work if they? Who knows? What if an astronaut gets seriously injured, or when they do plan on going and starting to mine asteroids, which I believe is in the works right now? How are they going to be able to help people out that do get injured working out there?
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, it all sounds good on paper, but I still think we got a ways to go, even with the privatized space. I mean, I think Elon Musk is probably the number one visionary, and he's not talking about doing much other than getting to Mars before 2025 or something, and which is great. But when it comes down to it, I don't know. I don't think space industry is quite going to be there. By the end of this century, it will be probably quite important to our civilization if we survive that long. But that's that's coming up in the next few stories.
Yeah, that's something else. Going with that too, it's like, I think it'd be more feasible if we were, instead of going to Mars, focusing more on the moon. It's a little bit closer and a little less dangerous to get to.
Well, I think part of the plan is to build a moon base and launch from there, to use that as a launch pad to get to Mars, which seems like a pretty good idea. Now, unless you're, Jay Weidner or some of those guys that claim that there's all kinds of structures on the moon, maybe they're correct and we'll never have a moon base, but I got a funny feeling we're going to see one come up soon. So,
oh yeah. Yeah, same here. Well, George Bush Jr. was already talking about going back to the moon by 2020. So,
yeah, and that stuff all seems to be in play. I see that NASA just came out with just approved the rocket design to start sending stuff to Mars. So, yeah, I got a funny feeling that's the way it's going to go. But, well, let's get on to the next story. And this is my favorite story of the week, actually. But, Android security mystery: fake cell phone towers found in the USA.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now, have been talking about this being set up for years. And you have the panic seekers that have been talking about, they're setting up the cell phone towers to monitor everything you're doing and whatnot, which is, I guess, somewhat true. But there's other things that they could be doing, right? And now, they found, I can't remember how many. I'm just looking to see if it had it here. There was like 17 or 20 of these mysterious cell phone towers that have been found in America that look like ordinary towers and can be identified by a heavily customized handset built for Android security, but have a more malicious purpose, according to Popular Science. The fake towers, computers which are wirelessly attack cell phones via the baseband chip built into them, allow them to communicate with their networks, and can eavesdrop and even install spyware, ESD claims. They are a known technology, but the surprise is that they are in active use. Now, these towers were found by a Cryptophone 500, one of the several ultra-secure handsets that have come to market in the last couple of years. And after an executive noticed his handset was leaking data regularly. So what these guys are doing now, this might not necessarily be a three-letter agency that has done this. This could be hackers that, organized crime that are advanced in hacking, have figured it out, that you could put potentially set up cell phone towers in a household. Now, people are thinking that they're the big metal towers, and that's not what they mean. They mean these could be anything. It could be an apartment building that with wires up the side of it. It could be, there's a lot of things you could build as a cell phone tower if you have the transmitter and receiver chips. And with the cheap electronics coming out of China, it's actually not that complicated if you know what you're doing to build one. So you could, I think that's what's more likely going on is that this is some sort of organized crime front.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too, seeing as it would be the cost prohibitiveness of the devices that you do need. Like the cheapest ones you can buy are around $100,000 or so. You would need like a fairly large bankroll to buy the devices that you need to turn whatever it is you're turning into a cell phone tower. And so the organized crime idea seems to be the most likely scenario.
Yeah, I can't see it being like, I mean, if the military or somebody was going to do it, they have a lot more brilliant ways to come up with that shit. So
they would just get the cell phone providers just to build them right then and there.
Well, yeah,
a cell phone tower here, put this on it. We want it. Oh, you don't want to do it? You can't build a tower.
Well, actually, according to what I've been told over the years, in every cell phone and phone system in North America, there's already a box in there that comes from the government that nobody really knows what it does, but it has to be hooked up to the government, and you're not allowed to have a station without one.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
you know,
I heard too.
It kind of makes you wonder. So like ISPs all have them, your cell phone provider has them, and that's law and mandated. So if the government wanted to do it, they'd probably just use that type of equipment. And well, according to Snowden, that is what happened. But let's get on to the next story.
Yeah, I do believe it is Mexico investigates a mass fish die-off in a lagoon. In Cajitalan, Mexico, they pulled 48 tons of fish, what kind of, the popocha fish, out of a lagoon. Authorities are investigating whether or not it was negligence at a wastewater treatment plant that's to blame for this. The local fishermen are getting worried that it might start affecting the edible fish in the area, such as the tilapia. I can understand why these guys are getting a little upset, and it's time that we started trying to enforce. I guess enforce is a little harsh, but trying to educate the rest of the world how to properly dispose of their wastewater, because this is a huge problem, not just in Mexico, but all over the world, where not only animals, but humans and stuff are getting diseased from contact with wastewater.
Yeah, well, that's, I mean, in North America, it's not perfect, but we have, really decent methods for it. It's like in ancient Rome, they had a really cool system with the aqueducts, but then it made everybody sick. So,
yeah.
At the same time, we have, some pretty interesting technology for water purification and stuff, and it does keep us relatively safe overall. But in these third world, they don't have anything to really, there's nobody. And the sad thing is it's our corporations that are probably over there poisoning that water.
Exactly. You see that, and that goes back to the whole BP oil spill thing too. It's like we as people have got to start putting pressure on our governments to start going after these companies that are doing this environmental damage. Like there's no secret that there are earth changes going on, even though there's people out there who still like to keep their head up their butt and seem to think that global warming is just a myth. Trees are turning color at the beginning of September instead of the end of September, which is kind of odd.
Yeah, see, the things change up here back and forth quite a bit. Like we never really know what we're going to get. So this year it's actually been about as average as I'm used to. It's kind of cold. It's September and the leaves have pretty much turned and blown off the trees, and it's almost time for the snow to start flying here. But like I guess in the South, I know in previous years here, it has been crazy, and I do think that obviously something's going on from what we've done with pollution. Now we could get into that debate a bunch, and At some point, I'm going to have Guy McPherson back on to talk about a lot of that, just so we can get an intake of somebody that's actually studied it. But
and knows what they're talking about too.
Yeah.
Like, he's a really smart man, and I've started seeing a lot of what he was talking about in those like earlier episodes that is starting to happen and was happening when he was talking about it.
Well, that's what I mean. It's just been this has been ongoing since 2011. We've been talking about it, and now we're 3 years in, and it's starting to actually, like, things that Guy had brought up that I didn't know about are starting to happen now, and he's been pretty much methane holes popping in the thing, but in Russia. But anyway, let's get on to the next story. Can Ebola go airborne? A study in the journal Science released last week shows that Ebola strain spreading across Western Africa has undergone a surprisingly high amount of genetic drift during the current outbreak. Experts say the mutations could eventually make the virus harder to diagnose and perhaps treat with a new therapeutic should one come along. In yesterday's Wall Street Journal, I wrote, in response to the crisis, the Obama administration has stressed the disease is unlikely to spread inside of America. We will certainly see cases diagnosed here and perhaps even experience some isolated clusters of the disease. For now, though, the administration's assurance are generally correct. Healthcare workers in advanced Western nations maintain infection controls that can curtail the spread of non-airborne diseases like Ebola. But our relative comfort in the U.S. is based on our belief that public health tools could easily contain a virus spread only through direct contact. That could change radically if Ebola were to alter its mode of spread. We know the virus is mutating. Could it adapt to make its way to airborne? And in this article just goes on. I won't bother reading the whole thing, but basically the premise is chances are no, because we have no historical evidence of a virus changing its mode of infection. It's never gone from a direct contact to an airborne virus. Now, things I've seen around would make me question if it's hopefully, we do know viruses will mutate and change RNA with each other and whatnot. That's where I'm more concerned about it. If it can mutate to the point where it starts bringing in, maybe the common cold RNA or something.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, we don't really know, but I mean, it's nothing that we should cause panic about either. Like, I don't think people should be freaking out. I've seen a lot of the rumor sites on the internet talking about, airborne Ebola or whatever. And after I dug into it, even the original one that I thought was an actual confirmed case is only suspected to be airborne. They didn't even know for sure. Beyond that, we don't really know, but it's nothing we should worry about. So let's get on to the next story.
Yeah, here's an interesting one. Back to our good friends in ISIS there. They supposedly seized a bunch of armed Russian jets from the Syrian army and are now threatening Russia and Vladimir Putin. Members of the Islamic State, a violent group of extremists presently terrorizing Iraq and Syria, have released a video threatening President Vladimir Putin and vowing to wage war in Russia's rest of North Caucasus. Okay, this one... ISIS doesn't really know what they're going to be getting themselves into if they do decide to go to war with the Russian people. They successfully pushed Hitler and his army out. They've held off pretty much every invasion that's ever happened there. And I'm not too sure how people will react to the Russian winters when they do decide to go and start attacking these people.
Well, there's that, but I also look at the thing. A lot of the problems with the Russian terrorism, whatever, with Islam fundamentalists, that happens in Chechnya and the Croatian region, right? So they already have fighters there who are Muslim that are probably hiding in plain sight, just waiting to pull stuff off. Like, that's what I'm worried about here in North America is that they've already got their sleeper cells inside before we ever figured out they were coming. you know.
Well, along with this one, this is just one of many ISIS news articles I've come across this week. There's like how many mujahideen have been either outed by the governments or outed themselves and come out and said, yeah, I'm from the West. I'm one of these people. I went over to ISIS to help the Islamic people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's just it. Like, we've had a bunch, and that makes you wonder how many are back here. Another thing I've seen too is that there was somebody who studies viruses. Anyway, that went over there and they found information on a laptop of his of him working on biowarfare for ISIS. We got Ebola running around in Africa, which is also a pretty crazy place with, you know, religious fundamentalism. You know,
especially in the region where the Ebola virus is most active right now too, the Western Africa. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on with the Muslim terrorists, or not Muslim terrorists, insurgents, or whatever you want to call them. Yeah,
exactly. I don't know, man. It's scary times, and that kind of brings us into our next story. Now, this is our final one of the week. Now, Putin threatens nuclear war over Ukraine. Rising the specter of nuclear war over Ukraine, Russia's Vladimir Putin is playing a new and dangerous game. On Friday, the Russian Federation tanks and troops poured across the border into the eastern Ukraine. Vladimir Putin talked to his country's most destructive weaponry. I want to remind you that Russia is one of the most powerful nuclear nations. This is reality, not just words. Russia, he told his listeners, is strengthening our nuclear deterrence forces. That same Putin used the term for the eastern Ukraine, meaning new Russia. So when he refers to repelling aggression against Russia, he speaks of nuclear deterrence as he did on Friday. The Russian president is really warning us he will use those nukes to protect his grab of Ukraine territory. Now, it's interesting because just after this story was published, I guess the news broke across the wires or whatever, we had NATO start to back down a little bit. You know, they all of a sudden were like, oh, whoa, well, maybe, you know.
We're not going to send troops now.
Yeah. Well, no, we're going to send some over, but they're going to be, you know, just to help out and stuff. And we're going to declare a ceasefire and everybody's going to be cool. I think that Putin was pretty much telling them, like, don't fuck around.
Yeah, from going back to last week's thing with the whole thing that's going on with the Ukraine there. Basically, all Putin, other than like this threat, this is a little overboard, I think, like the threatening nuclear attacks. But all Putin and Russia are really trying to do is back the people up who chose their sovereignty from the rest of the Ukraine. At least that's one side of the story. The other side that NATO's giving is, no, Russia's trying to take this land back.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's going to be a back and forth. I don't think either side is totally free of blame in this situation.
Not at all.
You can blame Russia all you want, but in reality, NATO started it by going in there and trying to get the Ukraine to jump on the NATO and land in Russia's backyard. I mean, that's your biggest enemy moving into your neighborhood and dating your cousin or something.
Yeah, the one thing too that I noticed is about a week after the whole thing started, around April or so, and Yanukovych was ousted as president of the Ukraine there in a coup. Nothing's really been said about that whole takeover of the Ukraine that way, and it was the pro-NATO guys that decided to take over the Ukraine. Kind of coincidental there. And this also brings to mind too, back in the 80s there, when Mr. Reagan, the president of the United States at the time, was going off about how if there were an outside threat to come and stop us from fighting, or an outside threat coming to the world to start the problem, that we'd all get together and defend ourselves against this outside threat. And then you go with following the conspiracy theory on it. It's basically they're trying to ramp up this nuclear war so that they can get the aliens to come and stop it and set out the whole new world order. That's a little bit on the far-fetched side. That's kind of what this is really leading into, it looks like.
Well, I mean, it's a possibility. My thing with the whole UFO nuclear war thing is I have yet to see any evidence that any of that is real. I'm not saying it won't happen, but hell, Jesus could come riding down on a basketball and bounce through all of our nuclear weapons. I don't know. Like it's one of those things that as much as I've looked, and I've spent a lot of time looking into UFOs, a long time, and I can't find anything, man. Like I really can't. The best I can find is that the military has advanced craft that are probably mistaken for being UFOs on a regular basis. And that I could see, them pulling that kind of equipment out in the case of a new war or something,
Exactly. Just to let people know what kind of stuff they do have and what they're capable of. When it comes to like the whole aliens thing, yeah, I'm a little bit on the fence on that. Like, it is kind of arrogant to think that we are the only intelligent species in the entire universe. But the thing is you got to look to and think that, okay, this is how far we've advanced in the roughly 10 to 15,000 years or so that we've been as Homo sapiens. This is the according to science, this is as advanced as we've gotten in 15,000 years. Who's to say other species haven't advanced along the same rate as us and are still in the same boat as we are, or still stuck in the Stone Age?
Well, my one is are we really ignorant enough to think that if an advanced species of alien was out there, that we'd be worth saving?
No.
Like
the way I look at it is they'd probably just go, no, we'll nuke them.
Yeah, no, we'll just let them nuke themselves. We're doing it.
Like, worry about it.
Yeah, we're doing a damn good job of killing ourselves off. We don't need some alien force to come along and do it. But that's it for this week, folks. That's all of our stories. And as always, what we want to do now, now that we've kind of got a little bit of a rhythm going here, all the stories you've heard in this episode are posted on our Facebook group, facebook.com/jungle apocalypse. And you can go over there, hit the like button and see all the news stories that come up. And what we're going to start doing is probably not next week, but the week after, every story that has the most likes will be like the top 10. If you see a story on there, you like it, hit the like button, hit the share button, help us get the word out, and then also vote on the stories at the same time. The website's coming along. We've got about 20, where are we here? 29 days, 8 hours, and 27 minutes until the website launches. So just under a month. If you go over, sometimes you might notice that you'll actually see a website at the domain bravenewmedia.tv. And if it's not some like cool website, it's a little sign up form where you can sign up for our newsletter, and find out about announcements when we're actually releasing everything. So go over and check that out. That means you'll find out about our Roku channel, how to watch on Chromecast, how to watch without ads, the whole 9 yards. We're going to be talking about it. So go over, sign up for that. And I guess that's it. I'm Rob Davenport.
And I'm Mike Sherwin.
And we'll see you next week.
Next week.